Suppose you're trying to track the health of the US economy. Maybe you're completing the macro journal along with me. You're reading the news, you're looking at the data, you're trying to go to the FRED and the BLS and the BEA. How do you streamline your process? One of the ways is by leveraging an economic calendar. There's lots of these calendar tools that are available. What they do is provide you a systematic way to capture all this information now. All. It's not all, but it's a lot of the quantitative information and a lot of the qualitative information. Uh, it can't be exhaustive. There's more data that's released about the U.S. economy in particular on any given week than could fit on a single web page. But the calendars provide you with a great synopsis. Now, there's many of these tools that are available. Some are very fancy, you can integrate into your Microsoft Outlook calendar system. Those are paid subscription based. There's also some free ones. The one that I tend to like is Trading Economics, but there's many out there. Um, each of the calendars, regardless of it's Trading Economics or investing.com or Market Watch, have a particular anatomy. Same basic structure. The viz is going to look different depending upon which service you use, but same basic anatomy. Let me walk you through that anatomy. So first thing you'll see up at the top is the release date. This was Wednesday, January 13, 2021. Okay, so that's when the information was released. The release time, what time of day was it released? Why would you need that? Well, why would you need to know the when? Can't you just look at it over at the end of each month? You could. But one, particularly if you're trying to think about this as what information do I know at a particular point in time, the release time is going to be important. One of the things I like to think about is the interaction between macro and markets. For market participants, they want to see what's the response of the financial markets, yields, stock prices, currencies to releases of economic data. So that release time is very important. Sometimes what you'll see is something highlighted in red. That's Trading Economics' way of saying, hey, this is especially important. There's also the data concept. It tells you a quick name. It tells you the core inflation rate for this particular one. It tells you MOM, month over month. And it tells you the coverage date. So there's two dates. It's not a typo. What you have is the release date and the coverage date. The release date is when it was made public. The coverage date is for what period the economic activity is covering. So this was prices during the month of December, and it was released on January 13, 2021. There's always some type of lags. The structure takes a long time, in this case, for the BLS to go and track all these prices, gather all this information, and make it available to us. The actual column is what actually happened. In this case, at the bottom there, it said that the core inflation rate month over month in the December was 0.1%. So that's period to period. That's monthly data. So that's December from November. Tells you what it was at the last coverage period. So if 0.1% for the month of December, the last one was November. So that was a 0.2% from November, October. Consensus average of expectations from professional economists, and Trading Economics actually has their own forecast built in. We don't know the mechanics of that. Tends to be pretty accurate though. So that's the anatomy. All of the calendar services that you're going to look at have a similar type of anatomy. This is how we read these statistics. Couple of pointers and further explanations. I want you to be sure you can isolate coverage versus release date. All the economic indicators are released with lags. You have to gather the information, compile the information, clean the information, and then release it. They're embargoed until a particular release date to ensure that we have clean data. Sometimes the lags are a week, sometimes they're quarters or even years, but it's still new information, right? It's still new information to you. Doesn't mean that it's new activity, but it's still new information. So the coverage date or the activity date tells me when the activity took place. The release date tells me when the indicator was made publicly available. I'll give you some tips about that in just a second. Previous versus consensus versus the forecast. Question I get often is, I understand why I need the actual indicator, but why do I need the stuff that happened in the past? Don't I want to know what's happening now? Why do I need these consensus measures? Don't I need to know what's happening now? Act like a detective. We want to tell a story. Storytelling is so potent. We do not know the truth, so we have to piece together the little bits of evidence. The actual indicator gives you a snapshot in time. When you combine that with the previous value, maybe you get a trend. Maybe it gives you a richer story. When you combine that with expectations, you could start thinking about not only what happened compared to last time, what happened compared to what people were expecting, and expectations are powerful drivers of economic activity. If people expect something to happen, that might change their current behavior. One of the nice things about trading economics, not only, but trading economics, is they give you some quick analysis. I took a screenshot here of that indicator we were talking about before, and it gives you a textual interpretation of what happened. You have to dig deeper, but at a quick read, it tells you a little bit about not just the number, but what's behind the scenes. And that's what's going to be critical here. On that indicator list, the calendar I showed you before, it said, the headline number of inflation. But when you actually go to the BLS, see, Bureau of Labor Statistics, and you look at that report, there's hundreds and hundreds of line items. I don't expect you to be an expert in all those line items, but here you can get a peek at what those might be. These calendars often will provide you some nice charting tools. It's not as robust or user-friendly as Fred, but quick snapshot. You get historical perspective. On trading econ, you could go back over different time ranges. You could even start to compare against others, which is nice. The export API features, those are paid. Uh, the definitions are there. They're okay. I don't expect you to ever memorize them. I do expect you to be able to do your due diligence and go to the source that's listed so you can understand it better. But at least it gives you a cursory explanation. Um, that source is always going to be cited and linked for you, but the BLS produces lots of different stuff. So again, we need to complement what's in the calendar with our own macro knowledge. And the other thing is that these calendars are not exhaustive. I took a snapshot here of trading econ, and it has a lot of information, not just for the US, but international, not just for quantitative, but also some qualitative information. Nonetheless, they're not exhaustive. So I want this to be a tool in your macro arsenal, but not the entirety of it. Hope that helps.